Hi, I'm Jim Franks, and you're listening to Verse by Verse. My verse for today is Genesis 1, verses 1 through 2. But before I get to the verse, a little background is necessary. When you consider the structure of the Bible, you see that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible over a period of about 40 years. God inspired him to tell a very important story in what could be considered 5 chapters of one book. The story begins at the beginning in a book called Genesis. Now, the first 5 books of the Bible cover a period of time of approximately 2,600 years. This assumes creation was around 4000 BC, beginning in Genesis 1, and the Israelites enter the land of Canaan around 1400 BC, which occurs during the book of Deuteronomy. Major events in human history occurred during this time frame. Creation itself, the flood, the Tower of Babel, with the dividing of the languages, and the formation of the nation of Israel. The foundation of civilization is formed during this 2,600 years. Now, with that as our background, let's go to my verse for today, Genesis 1, verses 1 through 2. There's a tremendous amount of history summarized in these 2 verses. In fact, there could be billions of years between these 2 verses. How is that possible, you might ask? Well, let's take a look. Genesis 1, verses 1 through 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Now, in verse 1, we have the creation of everything from nothing. The word created from the Hebrew means to bring into existence from nothing. God spoke, and the heavens and the earth were created. We know that God does not create anything in vain or in chaos. In fact, the Bible confirms that God did not create the earth in vain. Yet the very next verse, verse 2, describes a very dark earth, covered with water and with no light. Did God create the world this way? We do not accept that as being true or even possible. So what happens between verse 1 and verse 2? The Hebrew word for the English was in verse 2 is actually a root word that means to exist, to become, or come to pass. It is number 1961 in Strong's Concordance. The word in Hebrew is hayah. A good way to determine the true meaning of a word is to see how it is used in other places. Hayah is used in several places in the Hebrew Scriptures. One example of the use of this word is found in Genesis 4, verse 14. Let's look at this verse in the King James Version. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. This is the occasion where God sends Cain away for his brother's murder. The phrase, and it shall come to pass, is from the same Hebrew word found in Genesis 1:2, where it is translated was. We see from the meaning of the Hebrew word that God did not create the earth in chaos, but it becomes chaotic after creation. Something happens after creation that causes the earth to become, or it came to pass, that the earth was without form and void. While there is no description given in this verse of what may have happened, we do have ample evidence of a catastrophic event that occurred when Lucifer, who became Satan, was cast down to the earth, which caused the earth to become without form and void. This event is recorded in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. The chaos from this war in heaven caused destruction on the face of the earth, and the earth became, not was, as in created that way, it became without form and void. The idea of a gap of time between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 is often called the gap theory. We believe it is a logical and scripturally supported idea and really not a theory. The passage of time between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 explains how the earth could be created and then become without form and void. God doesn't create something in chaos or in vain, but with the war taking place in heaven, it became that way. This is followed by the recreation as recorded in the remainder of Genesis 1.
Verse by Verse is a Life, Hope, and Truth podcast. Check out the show notes to find more free content, like videos, articles, and booklets in our Learning Center.